Well, hello and welcome to the Wordlover podcast. I'm your host, James Beasley, and today we're talking about persecution. Before we get started, though, it's been a little over a month since we last recorded, and a lot has been going on with family.
Has it really been a month?
I think yeah. I think the last recording date was November 22nd.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been a while. But we've had a lot of stuff with families and holidays and a lot of stuff going on. But one of the last things we left off with was a recent mission trip that you had.
Oh yeah. How'd that go?
I think I'm supposed to ask you that.
It was absolutely phenomenal. For those, we talked about people that may have gone or may not have gone, and if you have not gone, I would highly suggest that you go on a mission trip.
Yeah, and the one that was most reluctant last time, wasn't he the one that enjoyed it the most too?
Absolutely. You sometimes you gotta give them a little nudge.
And on that note, I think you'll be having one coming up either in the spring or later on this year too, won't you?
Well, we'll do 2 more this year, maybe 3 possibly, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm waiting to hear back from the pastor of the church to verify. They may be building a church building, and they might need some construction help. So we'll see how
that sounds
works.
awesome.
Do you know any good people that know carpentry?
I might have a few in my blue book.
Or perhaps welding?
Welding, that's a hard one to come by. But anyhow, with that, we're going to get into our topic on persecution, and you're listening to the Wordlover podcast.
See, I don't look at my little thing there.
You did that.
I don't have anything to really combat you like normal. So
what does that mean?
You have to take it easy with me today.
But you took a picture of my paper and everything.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't get a chance to really go over any of it.
Because your mission trip was in Baltimore, was it not?
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of stuff going on that we probably don't see down here. A lot of violence and stuff, but how much of that would you say is due to like persecution, or is it really just like a sinful society in large?
Like Baltimore, you being a Christian, being persecuted in Baltimore?
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a thing. Like, there's nobody being drug out into the street and their head cut off.
Not because you're Christian. I mean, it's probably more like because they want $1, or like anywhere else in a lot of these places. You're more likely to get shot for money than you are because you're a Christian.
Well, that's not like you would have to define the line between persecution and
terrorism.
Yeah, I guess.
But tying it to our subject of persecution, one thing I would like to try to get to understand throughout this podcast today is there really persecution in America? We no doubt see hurting and hungry people. I mean, I actually serve at a soup kitchen not far from my house and see it all the time. There's sinful choices that tear families apart, like divorce, and a lot of stuff going on that we can see, but they're really, I would say, consequences of sin, and not really a persecution against believers to an extent,
Yeah, but so how would you say that Americans are persecuted for their faith? Like what kind of way can you describe or explain or prove that happens at all?
I would really, it'd be hard pressed for me to try to explain that, at least right off the front, without like going into long details about.
We ain't got time for that.
Well, 2 Timothy 3:12 says, "In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted." And that's why got me thinking about what exactly is the extent of persecution that I face. I mean, I get a little bit of backlash because of some of my stances on going to church and stuff like that.
Examples are super helpful in these situations. Yes. Go ahead.
Well, it's like I choose not to work on Sundays, and I sort of feel like I'm marginalized in the workplace at times because I'm not just gung ho to come in anytime I'm called. So I mean, sort of like stuff like that. Not that they're anti-Christian or against my faith. It's just I think that stance sort of like hinders, I don't know, progress in the workplace, I guess.
As I always do, I'm going to go to the extreme side all the way on the other side here and say being uncomfortable or being made fun of. And if you really look up persecution all over the world,
Yeah.
like it breaks your heart. I mean, seriously, folks, all you have to
Absolutely.
do is Google it, and you can see in India and Asia and all these different places that people are totally getting physically abused and even killed for their belief.
Oh, yeah,
And for
getting their families drug out from them and tortured, and you know, I couldn't even imagine my children being ripped out from my arms and tortured in front of me just so that I would deny Christ. You know, and I don't really think we grasp that even in today. I mean, when a Muslim comes over here and beheads or bombs somebody, it's in the name of their faith, but it's really against the whole westernized society. But I don't really think it's like over there when a Christian can be called out right in the middle of the square and killed because they're handing somebody a Bible.
well, that's just it. And then when you say persecution, that's what I picture in my head, and I just
Torture.
It's not torture. I mean, it's
To a degree.
I guess it is to a degree, but what we face over in America has absolutely nothing to do with persecution. I don't believe.
Well, what about that that scene that took place over the holiday about the HOA demanding that Jesus sign be taken down?
Well, I'll
Were
go
they
ahead.
persecuted?
Go ahead and explain the entire story to the people because they don't have any context, and then we can decide.
Well, they lived in this community in Pennsylvania, and they decided that for their holiday celebrations or decorations that they put a nativity set out in their yard, and they put a sign with Jesus written in tinsel letters over it because they believe that's the reason for the season. And I mean, absolutely no problem with that. But the HOA received a complaint, and they demanded that the sign be taken down because it was offensive. They said it was a violation of I guess some signage rule that they had in the community, but they stood by that they didn't see it as a violation of that, and it was fully within the I guess the regulations of decorating that they had. So it went back and forth for a while, and they were accused of not being Christian-like for not taking it down, and they accused the others of persecuting them against their faith, and you know it's back and forth, and it's just a hard situation because I tried Googling what the HOA rules were, and I never could come up with nothing. But
do you think that they involuntarily like made the case worse for Christians even?
I think
does that make sense?
Well, that does make sense. If the HOA regulations said that you couldn't have any form of a sign in your yard, I would say they actually made it worse because they were bucking a system that they agreed to.
Right. So how does that line up with persecution by any means?
Well, what we define as persecution as being extremely tested because of your faith, I would say that really doesn't line up any ways with that because your faith isn't measured by how many signs you have in your yard. It's measured by actually showing love to individuals and propagating the gospel.
So does that mean that they were showing love or they weren't showing love?
And trying to put me on the spot. What would you say to that?
I would say that when you are aggressive like that, I don't think that really is loving or kind or anything to do with what we're called to be. I mean, that doesn't really make any sense.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
So they stirred firmly, staunchly in what they believed was right. And
well, there's a way to do it.
It's not love.
There's a way to do it without
antagonizing the community.
Yeah, I mean that goes against what you're called to do, isn't it?
It sounds like Colin Kaepernick, don't it?
Oh, here we go. No, so where do you land on it? Do you think that they were being persecuted for?
I don't believe they were being persecuted, and I think the Christ-like thing would. They had the nativity set up. No one said anything about taking that down, and having that out in itself, people drive by and would say, "Oh, wow, they believe in Jesus." I would think they would to keep the peace as what Paul. I'm sorry for making it sound so
Wow.
to make you feel so bad. But no, I would say they should have probably took it down just to keep peace and in the community. But just stood by their faith and just said, no, Jesus is the reason for the season. There's other ways to make that known. But another topic that's related to this one.
Uh-oh.
Dare I?
Yeah, you dare.
I dare. I do. Is the end times persecution that is prophesied in the Bible about coming on upon the whole face of the earth.
Where's it prophesied at?
Well, it's in Revelations and Matthew, Luke.
What does Revelation say about HOAs?
That they're the beasts of the earth.
They are the beasts of the earth.
No, I don't know about anything about an HOA, but you know, you have it spelled out in Jesus' teaching in Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and so forth. But that there's this great persecution that's going to be coming upon the face of the earth about everybody who lives on the earth, and you have people that believe that you're going to be raptured out before it. You have people believe that you can be raptured out after it, or whatnot.
Are you trying to pigeonhole me into talking about the rapture?
Not yet.
Because I mean,
that would have to be another subject all in itself. My whole thing about bringing that up was is the fact of persecution itself. You know,
So basically, if you want to understand what James is talking about, you watch Left Behind with Kirk Cameron, and he gets persecuted.
Well, but also watch all his interviews after the fact. That what he says about that.
A high quality film that you know is done right.
Well, if he's in it, probably is pretty high quality, at least. I know, like
it's always debatable.
Like Fireproof.
So
let's back on subject.
Yeah, back on track here.
No, but the persecution is that what does Christ even mean when this is like so much more or worse than anything from the beginning of the earth until now? And people want to say, well, we're going to be taken out from that because it's God's wrath, but it's really the persecution presented through Antichrist. And my question is that kind of persecution the same as what we see all the time around us? Not necessarily in America, but in China, in Russia, in the Middle East.
Are we ignorant in the sense that America is our main focus? So if it's not happening to America, then it's not what happened. What's prophesied in the Bible? Does that make sense?
Well, I think so.
I mean, because if you think about everything that's
about us,
everything that's measured like that's mentioned in the Bible, rather, is going on. Like people are losing their lives and actually being persecuted.
And that kind of persecution been going on since the beginning of the church. Technically before, if you start the church at Pentecost, but the kind of persecution that Christians and believers have faced all through the ages. I think the problem is, especially in America, is that we're really not preparing ourselves to face that.
How does one prepare for persecution?
Well, I guess to make a resolution.
Resolution.
Yeah, to live firmly in your faith and to trust, to grow in your confidence in God, and just as Peter tells us to set apart the Lord as Messiah daily in your hearts. I think that's something that we have to continually do with anticipation of His coming.
Well, I want to go to like a little sidebar here.
Yeah.
So if you picture somebody that is fixing to get beheaded or hanged or killed or whatever else, and they're being persecuted for it, and if they renounce their faith, do you think that they are still saved?
By renouncing their faith?
Well, so they're like, well, you got to say that there is no God or Allah's God or whatever else.
And they think they're going to save their lives because of that?
Yes.
I would say that I would have to go back to what Paul said to told Timothy, that a trustworthy saying is this, that if we are faithless, he is faithful, and he will not disown himself.
So that means
If
that
you're
they're still
sealed,
saved?
if you're sealed with the Spirit, even if you get to the point that you're so scared beyond and you step out of walking in the Spirit, which I don't know of a single believer that walks 100% in the Spirit. If you step out of the Spirit and in that moment you
Hey,
you buckle.
how you doing? My name's Josh. Have you met me?
I have met you.
Oh, I see. And then you buckle, and then what?
I would say that if you were genuinely sealed with the Spirit to begin with, then no, God's not going to disown you because of that. I mean, you're going to definitely, I would say, I guess in some way lose rewards when He sees you. You're not going to be able to hold your head up when you are brought before His presence, for sure. But
Which might be right around the 2-minute mark from when you did it. That's according to some of these.
When you're killed,
Yeah.
yeah, most of them, that's all they want. They're just wanting to hear somebody buckle under pressure, and then they're still going to kill you anyways.
Right.
So you may as well stay steadfast. But I don't think that verbalization is necessarily what is the marking key of a believer. It's the life. It's the fruit of one's life. And that is shown by how they have lived, what they've been doing, what they were even caught doing at the moment, why they were even being persecuted in the first place. But that's what I would actually have to just default to what Paul said. If we are faithless,
He's faithful.
He's faithful,
Right.
and he will always remain faithful. But
well, that's kind of what I was going to say too, just not in so many words.
Not so many words. Now, there is that passage that Jesus says that if you disown me before men, I will disown you before my Father in heaven. What do you think? How does that tie into what I just said?
Is it what? What are you talking?
Well, I was actually just bringing up a.
You were contradicting yourself.
Contradicting myself to a degree. But Jesus said that if we disown him before men, he would disown us before his Father and the angels in heaven.
Well, I think that's rejecting the salvation part of it, like
the
that.
Salvation.
Like, well, I mean, so if you reject Christ, then you're not gonna. That's pretty much renouncing him in front of men, right? I don't think that has anything to do with what we were just talking about.
Stumbling in your faith.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I would take it too. And he's actually bringing up the actual wooing of the Spirit, and you have to accept Christ or not. Somebody can't force you to accept Christ or not. Someone can't force you to reject Christ or not.
But you can force people to go on a mission trip.
You can guilt them into going on a mission trip if you love Jesus.
Mm-hmm. So where does America get the persecution aspect from? How does that work?
Well, I think the easier somebody has it, the less
complain.
it takes to make you feel uncomfortable. You know, if I'm always given my supper at 5:00 every evening, and then one evening it's not there ready for me, well, then I'm gonna be like, oh my goodness, what has happened? All is lost in the world.
But that kind of goes against what we're taught biblically about being grateful and
content.
Yes, because that's not it at all. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous if you think about it.
It is. I actually believe the general mindset of the American believer, and I fall in this same trap.
Uh-oh.
It is that we're not content. We're not satisfied with just having Jesus. We say we are, but in reality, we're sheltered with our cars, our houses, our air conditioner. You let the air conditioner break in many people's homes, and
it's on.
And the whole world has come to an end. People, as long as they have money in the bank and 3 different types of insurances and all that kind of stuff, I trust God to provide. Now, I'm not saying those things are bad, but I think that we have been sheltered to a degree in that regard, in that the real genuine trusting in Jesus has never actually been tested.
So you're saying that it's all false faith?
Well, it's not necessarily false. I can't judge where it is. I'm just saying I believe it is. There's no way of truly testing it without losing.
Well,
something.
on the other end of the spectrum too, where you say all that, and then people, you say that they didn't really have that faith to begin with or whatever. A lot of times when you lose and when you're lowest, that's when you call out to God. So I mean,
oh, absolutely. That's why I said that it's not that one person doesn't have faith at all. I actually hope and pray that everyone does have real genuine faith, because that would be awesome. But
I'm guilty too, where comfort and persecution are two different things. Where I'm comfortable with my vehicle running, or the routines and the schedules, and as soon as you disrupt that stress sets in, and
get a flat tire on the way to work, and what happened? Oh, the devil's persecuting you for being a believer.
That's what I'm saying. But that mindset is we laugh about it, but it's true. I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, and I think putting it back in perspective, we got to keep in mind the church as a whole worldwide, and what they're actually experiencing, and I think we'll be able to handle a lot of more stuff going on in our lives. But with whatever time we have remaining, I brought up resolutions. Did you see that? Did you see how I caught that in there?
We were talking about that off mic earlier. So he was trying to sneak it in there, folks. Try to be sneaky about it.
It is the new year.
But are we really wrapping up persecution already?
I don't know. What else do you have to bring in? What kind of enlightenment can you bring, sir?
Well, I don't know about enlightenment, but I would challenge people that hear this and maybe get upset about what we're talking about to go ahead and Google persecution, and not in America, because if you do Google, you can search the internet, and it will yield all kind of things in America. But then when you go international, that's when it gets. It really literally will break your heart to watch what happens in other countries. Like, it's awful.
It is, and Voice of the Martyrs is a good place to start.
There's also a site called Open Door.
Yes.
And that'll actually show you a map globally of
the worst persecuted areas.
Yes, and America's not even a dot on there. So.
No, a lot of our persecution, I guess if you want to call it that, it comes from social stigma,
politics.
Politics, and stuff. A lot of that
is that considered really, persecution?
I was. What?
Can I let you finish, please?
I would say a lot of that. Both parties are claiming to be religious in their own right, so I wouldn't never really say it's persecution. It's just a misunderstanding of how of people see topics. It's for most of it. Now, some of them I would just say it's just not outright social persecution, like abortion. I would never agree that that's just a religious misunderstanding. But things like that. But on the general rule of thumb, a lot of it is, it's either one person looking out for the business or the company over the worker, or the worker trying to do what's right in his own eyes and whatever. But a lot of it's just just misunderstandings, or just not really seeing eye to eye. But I think persecution is out there, but I think like we said, looking out, Googling something about outside of the country, seeing how people really are putting their lives on the line for the gospel, would put our whole world into perspective.
Well, I don't even think that we're proactive enough as Christians to be persecuted. Like, we could get. I'm not saying that you want to get persecuted, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure, I'm proactive. I'm gonna.
We're not.
I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna have my breakfast. I'm gonna go to work and come back home and play with my kids. And in that little hour window between putting them to bed and when I start reading, I'm all for Jesus.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Where's the boldness or the action taken on, to walk our faith out?
I think a lot of us are just too busy.
Most of us won't even put ourselves in that circumstance to begin with. We'll avoid it completely just based on comfort.
Yeah, like we'll get out of mission trips to go on mud runs.
That is a prime example of what I'm.
I think I stepped on my own toes on that one. I don't think it hurt too much though. I got steel toes on.
There's a really good lyric to a song that this all kind of reminds me of that we were talking about earlier about comfort and persecution, and it's what's concealed in the heart of having is revealed in the losing of things.
That's on that CD you made me.
Very good, James.
Yes, I like that.
I'll play that song at the end of this recording.
That would be good to end that.
But it's really, that makes you really think about it too, because what you got going on in your life and everything's smooth, and then as soon as something drops off, it kind of reveals what's gonna like what your heart's all about. So I just thought that fit there. So
like Christ says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And
so what does it mean when you get a flat tire and you freak out?
means you panic too easy.
What happens if you
might not have a lug wrench?
What happens if you are waiting to get picked up from work and your ride calls and tells you they're already there? Is that frustrating?
I would say that could be a little frustrating for the individual that happened to, but it turned out also to be a misunderstanding.
Right. Well.
So I mean, it all worked out. I think patience and just the attitude to don't overreact in the moment. And even with a flat tire or the guy that don't pick you up and whatever,
Well, and God's sovereignty too, to get you out of your routine and habits, to make you drive in the morning. Maybe something could have happened, or you could have run into somebody, right?
Well, I hope not.
Well, I mean, not in your car,
I only have one vehicle.
I think you need to get a moped. And like 8 sidecars.
8 little side buggies with a trailer.
All right, I guess that's all I got to say about it. If you want to go on your revolutions,
the resolutions, I didn't really have much to say about it. I figured right towards the end I want to discuss it a little bit because it's the new year. It's
Happy New Year,
2018,
folks.
and
Woo!
we're gonna. I resolve to be more consistent with
that was way too long of a pause.
No, you have to be careful about what you resolve or promise to do.
Well, I would hope that you would have thought about it a little bit before you just start talking about it.
I resolve this new year is going to be good, not only for the podcast and even the blog site. 9 Blessings.
Yeah, plug the blog a little bit.
Okay.
I don't think you really ever done that on here.
Well, the blog spot tied in with the Wordlover is 9blessings.blogspot.com. I think I just mispronounced that. 9blessings.blogspot.com. And
we'll put the link up underneath the video.
Yeah, that would be a good thing. And on that, we're just discussing just different topics and about scripture and life, and sort of like what we want to do here on this podcast. Talk about or to bring this more of a reality, and looking on this new year, that's a good, that to me, that's a good resolution to have, is to make that more of a continual thing and to get the word out. Nice.
Very good. Very good. Very good. And he said we're, and basically it's him that writes the blog. So if there's something that you don't agree with, feel free to make angry comments.
And if you say, just give thumbs up to Josh if you like it.
Yeah, and also whenever you see the video, if you comment on topics that you'd like for us to talk about or research, we'd be glad to do that as well. But my resolutions are pretty much the same generic ones that don't get fulfilled, like James said off air. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, well, good luck with those.
It's always nice to be encouraged.
Yes. I'm right behind you all the way. But with that, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on persecution and what it really means for an American. And also, I hope you've, whatever resolution that you've made for this new year, that you carry it through by the grace of God. You've been listening to the Wordlover podcast.
All right. God bless, folks. Bye.
From one unfortunate moment, you took everything that I own. Everything you've given from heaven above and everything that I've ever known. If you stripped away my ministry, my influence, my reputation, my health, my happiness, my friends, my pride, and my expectation. If you caused for me to suffer, or to suffer for the cause of the cross, if the cost of my allegiance is prison and all my freedoms are lost. If you take the breath from my lungs and make an end of my life. If you take the most precious part of me and take my kids and my wife, it would crush me, it would break me, it would suffocate and cause heartache. I would taste the bitter dark providence, but you would still preserve my faith. What's concealed in the heart of having is revealed in the losing of things, and I can't even begin to imagine the sting that kind of pain brings. I would never blame you for evil, even if you caused me pain. I came into this world with nothing, and when I die it'll be the same. I will praise your name in the giving and taking away. If I have you, I could lose everything and still consider it gain.